When it comes to elections in Meghalaya, casting your vote is really just the start of the story. Today, we're going to dig into what happens in that crucial and often pretty chaotic gap between you marking the ballot and a government actually being formed. It's a journey where the voter's choice can sometimes get seriously lost in translation.
So let's just start with a really direct question. You go to the polling booth, right? You choose a candidate, a party, a symbol you believe in, but is the government that comes out on the other side really a reflection of the choice you made? That's the core problem we're unpacking here.
So here's the deal. Your vote, it's basically a promise. It's a pact between you and a candidate. You're trusting them to represent your interests, to stick to what their party said they'd do. But what happens when all the votes are counted, the dust settles, and that promise just gets, well, completely broken?
Okay, so first, let's look at this massive disconnect, this huge gap between the fiery promises made during a campaign and the cold, hard political reality that follows. Just think about the campaign trail for a second. It's all fire and fury, right? Party A is vowing that they're the only alternative to Party B. You might even vote for Party A specifically to keep Party B out of power. Then, bam, the election's over, and suddenly you see them on TV, shaking hands, working together, sharing cabinet posts. The bitter rivals have become government partners.
And this right here, this captures that feeling of betrayal a lot of voters feel. As our source material puts it, the mandate you give with your vote gets twisted into something you never ever signed up for, and maybe even the very thing you actively voted against.
So, how does this actually happen? How is it even possible? Let's dive into our next section and really break down the mechanics of how a voter's clear intention can get completely pushed aside in the mad scramble for power.
And it's a totally legitimate question, isn't it? How can an election, which is supposed to give us clarity, end up with a government that seems to appear out of thin air? Well, the answer usually lies in those frantic, messy days right after the results come out.
The whole process is often called horse trading. So here's how it goes down. First, the results come in, and oops, no single party has enough seats to govern alone. That's the starting gun for some intense, behind-the-scenes negotiations. Suddenly, MLAs from smaller parties or the independents become the most powerful people in the state. They're the kingmakers. Allegiances shift, support is offered, and a new coalition is born, one that looks absolutely nothing like the battle lines we saw during the campaign.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, hold on, isn't there a law to stop this? And you're right, there is. It's called the anti-defection law, and it was created for this exact purpose, to stop elected representatives from jumping ship and abandoning the party that got them elected.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. According to the source, these legal protections often aren't enough. There are loopholes, big ones. Rulings can be delayed, and through some pretty clever political maneuvering, these shifts in allegiance still happen, basically sidestepping the entire spirit of the law and, more importantly, the will of the voter.
And listen, this isn't just about one or two elections. This kind of political culture has a really serious, long-term, corrosive effect on voter trust and on the very foundations of our democracy. This all points to a culture of zero accountability. Just think about it for a second. When an MLA switches sides, completely betraying their campaign promises, how often do they resign and ask for a fresh vote from the people? Almost never. There are no real immediate consequences for breaking that trust.
And the fallout from this is significant. When it happens over and over again, trust in the whole system just crumbles. You start to wonder, why even bother voting if your choice can be undone in a backroom deal? Party symbols, which are supposed to stand for something, start to feel hollow. And the justification you always hear is, we need political stability, but it's a stability that's built on ignoring what voters actually wanted.
So what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, the source material doesn't just diagnose the problem, it actually challenges us, the voters, to start asking some tougher questions and to become more critical consumers of our own politics.
So let's just walk through a few of the really powerful questions that our source raises. And these aren't just for show. They're designed to make all of us think a little more deeply about our own role in this whole process.
Let's make this personal. You voted for candidate X because you strongly oppose Party Y. A week later, candidate X is a minister in a government run by Party Y. How does that feel? Is that democracy in action? The source is really asking you to decide, do you feel like your vote was honored, or do you feel like you were cheated?
And here's another question. This one's all about basic accountability. If a politician makes such a fundamental change to their platform, shouldn't they have to go back to the people, their employers, and get approval for that change? Why isn't this a standard demand from the public?
And the source doesn't just want you to ask these questions, it wants you to find the answers for yourself. It actually suggests a little bit of homework. Go check the last few election results. See with your own eyes which parties were bitter rivals and then became partners. Research your own MLA. Did they change their alliance after you elected them? These are facts you can find, and believe me, they tell a powerful story.
And we'll end with this one last provocative thought. We always hear that these strange alliances are necessary for a stable government. But is stability really more important than honesty? Should stability be built on post-election horse trading, or should it be built on clear, pre-election promises? It's a question that gets right to the very core of what we expect and what we should demand from our democracy.